nice. Can I use this one? My name is Ife Ojetayo. It's short for Ife Ojetayo. If you're wondering where I got that name from, it's Nigerian. So I am Nigerian. I was born in Nigeria.
You are the ones in the middle.
Oh, I have about 4 names, which is kind of like, conservative for Nigerian. So. Okay, I'll give you my full name. My name is Ife Timothy Aduanyo Ojetayo. The Timothy part is what trips people up. Like, my middle name is Timothy, and they're like, no, you're lying. So, it's a privilege to speak before you this evening. I love InterVarsity. I was a student here 10 years ago. I particularly love InterVarsity at Binghamton. Not just because my wife works here. It's when I was a student here, I came into college already believing in Jesus, grew up in a Christian home, but I didn't really know, my faith really hadn't been tried. I grew up knowing this is what I should believe and believe in it, but never really having any questions. So I came into college and there were a lot of questions in my classes, among the friends. I actually made friends that were non-Christians. I didn't have many of those before I came to college, at least not very close friends. I had close friends who were non-Christians where I talked about my faith from them. They challenged my faith. I took classes that challenged my faith. And InterVarsity was an oasis for me in the midst of all of that. It was a great place to come and fellowship with brothers and sisters in Christ who loved Jesus, who knew Jesus, and who challenged me and helped me to grow in love of God. And so that was a great thing, and I hope that for you guys as students here at Binghamton University that you have that. And I hope this place is what that is for you as well, that it's an oasis where you can be charged, where you can encourage one another and grow deeper in love for God. And I hope that you don't just do it here, but I hope that energizes you to reach out to the campus so you can transform your life, renew the campus, and change the world, right? So, tonight I'm here to talk to you about defining truth. It's a very complicated thing, at the surface level. What is truth? How do we define it? Those are the questions that we all ask ourselves. And it can, like I said, it can seem complicated. It can seem that we're actually a bit inadequate to answer that question. I feel a bit inadequate. I feel like somebody with a PhD should be standing in front of you and talking about this. But I think truth isn't actually that complicated. Truth is simple. Let's talk about truth, the singular, not truths now. There are different truths that we believe in. But let's talk just about what truth is, what makes something true. Truth is very simple, right? Truth is something that it's not mysterious, I don't think. It's not something that we have to, it's not an enigma that has to be deciphered. It's knowable, it is simple. That's the first thing we need to know about as we go on this evening. Truth is simple and it's knowable. From childhood, we can know what truth is, right? If I tell a 3-year-old that it's snowing outside, all he has to go, he or she has to do is look outside, and if it is snowing, then what I've said has conformed to the reality, right? So it is snowing outside, so what I said is true. If it isn't snowing outside, the 3-year-old can turn and say, you're lying, because my statement hasn't conformed to reality. So it is false. So in that sense, we know what truth is. Truth is something that conforms to reality. Let me give you another example. If I say that I am wearing pants, right? Well, have you ever had that nightmare that you're standing in front of a group of people and you have no pants on? Has anyone ever had that dream? Yeah, I've had that. But I'm wearing pants, blue jeans to be exact. That is evidently true, right? If I said to you all that I'm not wearing any pants, that would evidently be false. If I insist that I'm not wearing any pants, you might start to think there's something wrong with me, right? I am insane. I'm not right up there, right? Because you all see that I'm wearing pants, and I'm insisting that I'm not wearing any. So what I'm saying does not conform to reality, right? So there is something wrong with me. There's nothing wrong with, the truth is there that I'm wearing pants, right? But my statement, even though I believe it to be true, I might believe it to be true, is not true, right? Because it doesn't conform to reality. And then something is wrong with me. Not with the truth, but with me, all right? So, and we need to understand that as we move forward, because I think when we talk about truth, and truth is, we'll come to that a little bit later, but truth is something that is, right? And it's objective. And if it is true, then that means that other things can also not be true. There has to be things that are not true for truth to stand alone and to remain true. So, and there are, not that everybody that believes in a lie is insane, but it's true that to say, though, that in a world that believes that truth is not something that is knowable, that it stands by itself, that is objective, then that society or that world has problems. It's a problematic thing, right? It's just like me standing here and saying I'm not wearing pants. Evidently I am, and if I insist on it, there's something wrong with me. So we can see that the nature of truth is obvious. It's clear. In fact, it's so obvious that it can be manipulated, right? That's why you don't have to teach a kid how to lie, right? They know how to lie. The reason they know how to lie is because they know what truth is, and so they know how to manipulate it, right? If they have to learn what truth is, they would not be sophisticated enough to tell a lie, but they know instinctively how to tell a lie because truth is knowable, and so it is easily manipulated. I hope that gives you a clue into human nature and as we go forward. But like I said, if truth were not obvious, it wouldn't be easy for a 3-year-old to manipulate it. So for the sake of our discussion, I'd like to suggest that also that truth is the same everywhere, right? It might not always be easy to verify it. Some of the examples I've given are pretty simple, but sometimes they're not that simple. So truth might not be easy to be verified. It might not be easily verifiable, but it is the same everywhere that it is. It exists and it is the same. There's essentially an idea that matches up to reality, right? Truth is also unyielding in the face of beliefs. What do I mean by that? To say something like, and we've heard it so many times, I'm sure, that that's my truth, or that's true for me, is actually not a true statement, right? That's not a truth statement, that's a belief statement. If I say something is true for me, then I'm saying that I believe in that thing. But if it's true for me and something else can be true for you that is in opposition of what is true for me, then we are not believing in truth, we're just believing. It's a belief statement, right? I hope you understand. Let me explain that a little bit more. Truth can both be a belief statement and truth at the same time, but oftentimes a belief statement is not always truth, right? If I say something is true for me, it's a belief statement, but truth has to transcend me, right? Truth has to stand outside of me, right, for it to be truth. Truth cannot just be a mere preference. So I can't say that, this is true for me. That's my preference, and I have a right to that preference. I have a right to that belief, but that is not, because it's true for me, does not make it necessarily true. So truth is unyielding in the face of unbeliefs, or beliefs. So what I believe does not affect what truth is. I hope what I believe is the truth, but truth stands outside of me and my preference. Truth also, by its nature, is objective. I hope you can see that already now. Truth is objective. It has to have meaning and value beyond me and beyond who I am. It can't function as a mere preference, right? It has to be what it is, whether I like it to be that or not, right? For example, I would like to fly. I really would. Like, you've seen those, beautiful, I would just like to jump off a mountain and just fly like an eagle. And fly like an eagle. I just want to fly away. But there's something called gravity, right? So I can't do that. Now, if I believe I can fly, right? I believe I can fly, right? I believe I can spread my wings. And if I believe it, really, 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 really believe it, I mean, I believe it. I just believe that's true for me. It might not be true for you guys, but I believe I can fly. And I go up on that mountain and spread my wings and jump up the mountain. Gravity still exists, right? That truth exists outside of my belief. And yeah, that's, what happens then. So, the truth is unyielding in the face of beliefs. Truth is objective. It doesn't matter what my preference is. It doesn't. I'm not the determinant of what truth is, right? I'll also like to suggest to us this evening that truth is the only basis for tolerance, right? Now we're getting into really dicey places here. Truth is the only basis for tolerance, right? Tolerance it's almost an ideal, like it's beyond that actually in our culture, in our society, right? Tolerance, we need to be tolerant. But it isn't really, the way we understand tolerance to be in our culture is not what tolerance is, right? Truth has to exist. There has to be objective truths. There has to be objective values in order to have something to tolerate, right? If there are no truths, then there's nothing to tolerate, right? So I think in our culture, I think we have a problem with objective truths. I think we have a problem with absolutes, right? Even among us, I'm sure that already I've made statements that have put you guys on edge, or maybe a little bit on ease, because some of the things I'm saying are absolute statements about truth. And it's not anything really controversial what I've said, it's just the reality of what truth is. But it's hard for us to think in those terms, or it seems, really against the tide to think in those terms, because we have a problem with objective truth and absolutes, especially when it comes to moral truths and religious truths, things like that, right? If I tell you 1 + 1 is 2, nobody really argues about that, right? Mathematical truths, scientific truths, as long as it doesn't impinge on moral truths and doesn't impinge on religious truths, we don't have a problem with that. But when we talk about moral truths, we tend to have a problem about absolute and objectivity. So I want us to, there's a reason why that is. There's a word for it, right? We live in a relativistic society. There's relativism everywhere, right? But I'd like us to deconstruct that a little bit as we go forward, so that we can better understand what truth is, right? So, relativism is an idea that suggests that when it comes to moral and religious claims, the truth is relative to the subject, right? So, again, what is true for me is true for me, and what is true for you is true for you. So, there's no objectivity, there's no absolute, everything is subjective, all right? Truths are subjective as well. Relativism is a belief or value statement that there is no way really to ascertain any moral certainty or objectivity, right? And we live, and so, in fact, even if you don't really think you believe that, sometimes it's the way of the culture, and so we hold that and we say that. It's hard for us to say, hey, I believe this is true, and I think it's true for all of us, or true for you and I, whatever it is that you believe in, right? But let me ask you a question. What is it that holds a society together? What is it that holds us together in this room? What is it that makes it so that we can sit in the same place, inhabit the same town, live in the same college, interact with one another day to day? It's common values, isn't it? We have some common values, right? Irrespective of your religion, your background, there are intrinsically some common values that we all share, right? That's how society works. Those common values are expressed through law, right? So we have laws, things we commonly hold to be good, we have laws that encourage them, right? Things that we commonly hold to be bad, we have laws to discourage them. Like stealing, right? We believe property is good. What is mine should be mine and should should remain mine. You shouldn't be able to come and just take what is mine and make it yours. So we have laws against stealing, right? We believe that, life is valuable, so you can't just come and kill somebody without any, repercussions. So Aristotle said this about law. He says, law stands upon the necessary foundation of moral truth, right? If there isn't any moral truth, there can't really be law, right? So in a society that believes that there is no real way of determining what moral truth is, if law stands on moral truth, but there isn't any objective value to truth, if morality isn't objective, if it is subjective, then we can say about truth about law that there is really no way to determine what is just and what is unjust, right? There is no way to really determine what morality is. When morality becomes subjective, all that matters is power at the end, right? I hope you understand where I'm going here. If there is no moral objectivity and everything is subjective, then all that matters is power, because what is true for me is true for me, and if I wanted to make it into law, then I have to have the power to implement that. And if somebody else comes along, we can't make any claims to any moral truth that is higher than us to say, this is why we have this is why we as a society decide to behave this way. And I don't think any of us want to live in that sort of society where power is what rules, right? Where power becomes the rationale for all things and not morality. But in a truly relativistic society, that's the way it functions. I'm also trying to make us aware that even though we hold relativism as an ideal, none of us truly believe in relativism. As we go along, you can see that. None of us, there's no true relativist here. All of us, whether we claim it or not, believe in absolutes, believe in moral objectivity, believe that there are wrongs and there are goods and there are bads, right? There is also a myth that we believe in. We believe there's a myth of moral neutrality in our world, right? Or the myth of tolerance, right? The best way to explain that is that we all believe that we're a moral island to ourselves, right? This is what I believe, and it's true for me. And I can live in this little island of where these things are true for me, and these things are good, and these things are bad, and I believe in these things. I believe this is the way I need to order my life. And you can come along on your island of, and you can believe what you want to believe. It doesn't have to agree with what I believe. You can stay on your island, right? But we don't really live on islands, right? We interact with one another. But there is this myth that this is the way the world works, right? We all believe what's true for me can be true for me, and what's true for you can be true for you. The belief that moral relativity is a norm, it's itself an absolute, an objective statement. How do you see that? If I say that, what is true for me is true for me, and everybody can have, everybody can, what they believe is what they believe in, how they want to structure their life is, truth is not objective, right? Truth is subjective. That statement itself is an absolute statement, right? It turns upon itself. And so there's an example. As preparing for this, I was listening to, I don't remember his name now. He was sharing that he was in a clinic, and he was having a conversation with. He was in a chiropractor's clinic. He was having a conversation with someone else. They were waiting for the doctor, and he said something. I wouldn't say what he said, but he said something that was a moral statement and a moral absolute. And the guy next to him, got upset and said, "You shouldn't judge. You shouldn't, you're being, insert the word there. You're being, bigoted. You're being close-minded. You're judging." And this fellow asked, "Well, why do you think that?" And what are you doing right now? Right? Because the guy just said, "You shouldn't judge," right? But what are you doing right now? You're judging, you're levying a judgment on my statement, right? So that's how relativism implodes in itself, right? There isn't any sort of things that says, we can't live in a world that sort of does that. So I hope you can see that there is no such thing, right? Relativity can be the norm. Relativity itself is an absolute, right? It's an objective value, right? It's not neutral. There is no neutrality, right? So the posture that it has of neutrality, of let's not offend anybody or let's not impose our values upon everybody, let everybody be, that value itself is an objective statement. Let's look at the moral leaders in our world, right? Think of the past. Think of people like someone, like the best exemplar of moral values, right? The best exemplar of giving, of selfless giving, of sacrificial, devoting their life, their calling, everything to helping the oppressed, helping the poor, helping the less valued. We can say probably one of the best exemplars of that throughout history is someone like Mother Teresa, right? The best example of non-violence resistance and fighting for justice would be someone like Martin Luther King, right? If you ask these people if they believe in moral objectivity and moral values in order to do what they do, they would say yes, right? Think of the idea of relativism, and now think of a best exemplar of that, somebody that you can point to say, this is someone that lives that ideal to the fullest, that says, I don't believe in moral truth, I don't believe in moral objectivity, what's true for me can be true for me, and I don't care what you think is true. We really can't think of any, right? So if there is someone that really exists like that, that person would be, well, actually we do. I hope none of us are here that's like that. That person would be a sociopath, right? Someone that thinks that, murder is, well, you think murder is wrong, that's true for you, but I have no problem with that. Stealing, I have nothing problem with taking people's stuff. That's a sociopath, right? That doesn't have any sort of moral underpinnings to rule their lives and whatever they feel like doing, even if it hurts somebody. That's the best example of relativity, of a relativistic worldview. That's someone that lives it out fully, with no care at all. So, and the reason why that is that I think all of us, if we're honest with ourselves, know there are some truths about the world, right? We all watch something and we say, that's wrong. Or we see something and we say, well, that's unjust, right? The reason why we make those claims is that we know there are values that we can lay claim to that says, this is right and this is wrong, right? And we have to know that those values are something that is not just innately of ourselves alone. It has to transcend us. Otherwise, we can't levy that. I can't tell, someone they're doing something wrong if I don't believe in moral absolutes, if I think, because I can't say, I don't agree with that. I don't agree with what he just did there. But I can never say it's wrong. I can never say that's not right. I can say, I would not do it that way. That's a relativistic point. But to say that's wrong, that's not right, is good or bad, is a moral objective value, right? So let's talk a little bit more about the flaws that are inherent in a view of relativism. A relativist can never question, can never complain about the question of evil in the world, right? The same reason why you can say, that's wrong and that's bad. If you believe in a relativist worldview, you can't question evil in the world, right? That you raise the question at all, why does bad things happen to good people, that you raise that question at all suggests that you have an idea of objective truth, of evil, and a commitment, an idea of evil versus good, right? To raise that question at all. So I hope you can see that there are no real moral relativists, right? There is no such thing as that. Relativism is self-refuting. So as we go forward, and let's turn a little bit back to talking about truth. the reason why we talk about relativism is that it seems to be at the forefront of, oftentimes we think of it as an opposite value system, right? We believe in moral objectivity, or we believe in relativism. But I think relativism is actually nothing, it's not the opposite of it. It destroys morality. It destroys what truth actually is in the world. So, truth is objective. Truth is something that stands outside of us. Truth is something that's transcendent. Truth is a part of what God has put in creation to help us deal with reality, right? There's something that's true about everybody in this room tonight. It's true of me as well. We all believe there's something that we're guilty of, right? I mean, it might be different things, but there is something, you look at yourself, no one else knows this about you, but you look at yourself and you say, well, I need to be better at this, or I'm not good enough at this thing, right? If you're honest with yourself, if we all look inward, we can make that judgment about ourselves. There is something about myself that is not fully there yet, that I need to get better at. I need to, whatever that thing is, right? And oftentimes there is guilt that comes with that, right? Now, if we truly believe that, there is no moral truths or moral absolutes, then there is no reason to have those ideals, to have even those feelings, right, to exist within us. But those things are innately part of who we are. I think part of that is because God has created that in us, right? God has given us an idea of that there is something outside of us that is an ideal that is outside of who we are, right? We can't attain that ideal of ourselves or by ourselves, right? And also, truth is, like I said in the beginning, truth is something that is knowable. What we ought to be true affects how we view the world, right? So the way we view the world is impacted by what we think is true or what is not true, right? And truth, I would suggest to you that idea of guilt is not the solution, right, to the feeling of innate, or explaining it away and saying it's not important. What's true for me can be true. It's not the way to address that innate feeling of there is something that's not quite there. We feel it in ourselves, we feel it in the world around us. Let me suggest to you that the way to deal with that is forgiveness, right? No, I'm not saying that you should forgive yourself, right? You don't have the power to do that, right? And the only way to have true forgiveness is in Christ Jesus, right? He's the only one. If we truly believe that truth is something that transcends us, if we believe that truth is something that is outside of us, if we have this innate value system in us, there has to be something that put it in there, right? It can't have generated by itself. If it's something that transcends all of who we are, there must be, if this truth, this moral rule, there has to be a ruler that puts that moral rule in. And I'd like to suggest to us that that ruler is God. And I'll further like to suggest to us that that ruler is exemplified and personalized in Jesus Christ, right? John 14. Jesus is talking to his disciples, and he tells them, after he says, in my Father's house are many rooms, if it were not so, I would have told you, so I go to prepare a place for you. He says, I will come again. Thomas said to him, Lord, we do not know where you are going. How can we know the way? Jesus said to him, I am the way, and the truth, and the life. No one comes to the Father except through me. If you had known me, you would have known my Father also. From now on, you do know him and have seen him, right? Jesus says, I am the way, the truth, and the life. He is the embodiment of truth, right? When I said before that truth is something that conforms to reality, the ultimate reality is God. Not us, not what we think, not what we believe, not what we even, prefer. The ultimate reality is God. And so all truth, anything that is truth, emanates from him, right? So, in order to know truth, we have to know him. Now, the good news for all of us is that God himself, who is truth, came into the world, lived among us, died for us, revealed himself to us, right? I would also like to suggest that truth is a revelation. It's not something that we can come to in ourselves, right? It's not something that we can determine in ourselves. So again, the statement of that is true for me, it's a false statement. Truth has to come from outside of us. Truth is a revelation. And God in his loving kindness has revealed himself to us in the person of his son, Jesus Christ. And he's died for us. And he's given himself for us so that we can know him, right? We can have access to him. We can have access to God. The Holy Spirit comes and lives with us when we believe in that truth, who is Jesus Christ, and leads us in all truths, leads us in knowing God and being conformed more and more to the image of who Jesus is. Right? Lastly, I'd like to tell us that truth has a cost. Right? So as we talk about what truth is, and we believe, if we truly believe that truth is embodied in who Jesus is, Jesus Christ is the personification of truth, when we come to him, we'll know who he is, we'll know what truth is. That reality, that truth itself, holding to that, believing in it, has a cost. So if you're here and you do not know, or you're not a Christian, or you believe in any other religion, and by the way, I'm not a bigot, you might believe that, but every religion in the world does not believe that, a Muslim does not believe that what is true for you is true for me. Their belief system is an absolute belief system. In order for it to function as a truth, it has to be absolute, right? A Buddhist believes the same thing, right? Every religious system believes this, right? And so we need to get into believe as college students in a place where we have exchange of ideas. We need to be able to stand on what we believe in, stand on the truth of who God is, and defend it unapologetically. And part of the cost of that is that you might be seen as intolerant, right? Again, we'll go back to that word intolerant. Tolerance can only exist when truth exists, right? And this is what tolerance is. Tolerance is that you can believe what you believe. Even though I believe it's wrong and it's false, I also believe that you're created in the image of God. You bear the very image of God, so I will treat you with respect. Even though you believe something else from me, I will treat you with value because of who you are, right? That's tolerance. Tolerance isn't saying, well, I disagree with you, but I can't say that, so I'll just say, that's not tolerance. That's, in some ways, that's cowardice, right? That's not being able to stand on what you believe in. Tolerance exists when truth really exists in the world, right? The other cost of truth is that it makes us, for those of you who are believers in Jesus Christ, right? Jesus is the personification of truth. I want to challenge us, right? We know truth. Jesus says, I am the way, the truth, and the life. He says, if you had known me, you will have known my Father also, right? Is the truth that you believe in something that shapes what you believe or shapes your worldview, right? If you say, I believe in this thing, and it has no implications on how you live your life, then it's just mere preference and just lip service, right? If it's indeed truth, it has to conform to reality, right? So if your life does not conform to the reality of what you say is true, then you have to determine what is it going to cost me for my life to conform to the reality of what I say it is, right? If Jesus is Lord, right? If Jesus is creator of the world, if he has ransomed the world by his blood and given himself for you so that you can be one, you can have a relation with God, if he has called you to be an ambassador, an agent of his love and grace in the world, how are you living that out? In what way does your life conform to that truth about who Jesus said he is and what you ought to be if you're a follower of him? So this isn't just an abstract thing. I hope we understand that tonight. That truth isn't just a mere abstract thing that we say, oh, I believe this and I believe that. It's something that shapes how we live our lives. And again, none of us can live up to the perfect ideal, right? Jesus is the perfect ideal. None of us can live up to that. But the only way in which we can conform daily to him is by knowing him, right? Drawing closer to him in order to live in the world, right? And if you're not a believer, sometimes it's hard for you to come to the truth of who Jesus is, because part of the cost is that you have to let go a lot of things, right? For some of you that became Christians, I was born in a Christian family, and in 10th grade, when I came to know Jesus, there were some things that I had to let go of, but not a lot. But if you lived in a different religion, perhaps, or different lifestyle or background, and you come to know the truth, there is a cost to that, right? It's not merely something that we have to know with our head. So, for us as Christians, we need to know there is a cost for people to follow Jesus. So, we need to be, I encourage you to understand when you talk to people about who Jesus is, to understand what the cost is for them, right? To be patient, to be loving in understanding that cost. To continue to invite them into the truth, right? Because if it is true, it's true for them and for you as well. It's not something that, but you invite them, but you do it in a loving way, in a prayerful way, right? And understanding the cost for people. And I'll leave us with this. If what Jesus said about himself is true, if what he said about the world is true, and that is reality, and you're not in that truth, ultimately, the cost of not being in that truth is far much more higher than any cost that you can have now in this world. So my prayer for us is that we will come to know the truth, we will embrace it, we will be willing to pay the cost for knowing that truth gladly, and we will revel